So, hello, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this webinar. It's the first time I'll be doing this sort of virtually, so bear with me. I'm going to share my screen now. Hopefully, it's going to work. So is that good? Can we see that? Yeah. Is that good? I can't.
That's perfect.
Yeah?
That's working really well.
Great. Okay, brilliant. Okay, so if I just I'll give you a brief introduction about me to myself, who I am. So I'm Emily Whiteley. I'm based in Sheffield. I'll try not to go on too much. I initially, professionally, I started as a languages teacher. I trained to be a French and Spanish languages teacher. And then I've gradually, over time, carved my niche and trained as a forest school practitioner 8 years ago, I think now. Also, before being a forest school practitioner, I did an MA in autism and specialised in special needs. I've spent most of my working career as a teacher working in one special school in Sheffield. I've been all over the place, all over the world, but keep coming back to this one special school where I introduced forest school before I qualified, and we've gone from strength to strength, and we're now a Forest School Association recognised provider. We were the first one in Yorkshire, and I think we're one of the only secondary schools in the country to offer that. And sorry, I'm getting distracted by people in the waiting room. What else? Yeah, so that's me. I've got I'm an SLE as well, actually, it might be worth mentioning, which is a specialist leader of education, which is a route that teachers take who are perhaps not what's the word, made out or not interested in following typical sort of senior management route. And so my specialism for that is forest school and special needs. So I build capacity across, well, I've been to schools in South Yorkshire in those subjects. So I'll go in, my school gets paid, I don't get any more pay, and offer training or support with developing those aspects of the curriculum. So that's really exciting. And since enjoying that, I've set up my own business, and I do stuff along those lines on a freelance basis. So yeah, now the sensory circuits, why am I here doing this? Well, about 18 months ago, I was commissioned by Create Sheffield, who are an organisation supporting the arts in Sheffield to promote creative opportunities for young people. And I'm a partner with them. And I got a commission to develop sensory circuits in nature. So this is why sort of I've developed this interest. And I was asked by Nell from the FSA initially to provide some workshops at last year's conference, which I did. And then I think it was Nick that asked me, invited me along to do this tonight. So I'm a little bit out of my comfort zone because I'm sitting at the table in my house, which I don't normally do, because I've actually, I won't go on about it, but I'm pretty sure I'm neurodivergent. So hopefully this workshop's going to help you to sort of be more inclusive in your practice, which obviously, you know, I'm assuming most attendees are working in a forest school setting, so you know that, you know, it's already a sensory rich natural environment which promotes inclusion, but hopefully this will just give you sort of some other ideas of how to develop that further. So that's lots of talking from me. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure if the information went out before about having some things to hand, but it doesn't matter if you haven't got anything to hand, because I just thought we'd kick off straight away by doing a very short sensory circuit. There's 3 elements. I will explain more about sensory circuits later on, but yeah, we're going to do 3 activities. So here we go. The first one I want you to do is we're going to be quite active. So if you'd like to, if it's okay for you to stand up, let's go for it. I'll demonstrate. So if you can stand up, you might want to find somewhere in your space. You don't have to stay on screen, obviously. And you're either going to do star jumps on the spot. So obviously make sure you've got space. If you think that's too energetic, you could, you know, swing your arms around, do some step ups if there's a step nearby. But if you'd like to just do that for, I'm just going to say 30 seconds. I haven't got a timer, but we'll just roughly time that. So you're going to do like quite a dynamic movement exercise starting now. Cool. Okay, stop there. Brilliant. Now the next activity is going to be you're going to choose either a balancing activity, so you could do like a tree pose, you know, from yoga, do a balance on one leg. Obviously, you know, you could just have your foot on the floor against your leg, the other leg, or right up in the air. Or you could walk along the edge of a rug, or along a line, or I've got a long lead here that's supplying power to my laptop, you know, heel to toe along a line. Maybe you want to go out into the if you've, you know, out the front door onto the street or whatever. So you're going to either do some balancing. In fact, yeah, let's just do balancing. We'll all do that. Ready for about half a minute. Go for it. Don't overthink it. Just go with it. All will become clear. Fab. Great stuff. Now, if like me, this isn't my table now, but if you've got a few things to hand like this, maybe a fruit bowl or a pile of leaves or some pine cones. I don't know if you got that memo, to have a collection of natural materials to hand. Of course, it's midsummer night, so you might have collected some special things like elderflowers that we've got there, that are particularly seasonal. So if you've got anything to hand, it doesn't have to be natural, but it would be good if it was. It could just be pens, it could be some shoes, it doesn't matter. Okay, and then what I want you to do is you're going to sort them in some way. So you're either going to sort them into colors like that. Yeah, you might sort them into sizes. If you've got your odd socks to hand, that might be good. Textures, and these are just ones that I had from that table collection the other day of things I'd gathered. So there's mint, you know, I've sized it obviously into the leaves. So there we go. So that's, so you're going to do, I don't know if there's any questions about that, but again, don't overthink it. So if you've got pens, you might want to sort them into colours or into cost, how valuable they are, or how valuable they are to you. Or I'm just looking around here, or, you know, you might have a pile of books, or I'm looking at bicycles, which tend to be in my house with teenage boys. Yeah, if you can just sort and categorize something, just you might just find your cutlery drawer for another half minute starting now. Okay, stop. Brilliant. Might be difficult to stop. It looks like some people are wanting to carry on. That's good. Okay, that's that second type of activity sorted. So we've done some balancing and categorizing, organizing, and then the final stage, what we're going to do next is we're going to do something that you find calming. So I'm just thinking, you could do some push-ups on the wall or against a door, or if you're lucky to have a tree within a few seconds walk. So you're going to stand up, lean against something and do some push-ups, or you might actually want to do a plank on the floor. You might want to get down, do some press-ups. So you're going to do some push-ups. If you prefer, you could just give yourself a head press. Okay, again, we're just doing it for half a minute. So starting now, you're just going to do that movement, either the pushing or the head press. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Right, stop there. Excellent. Right, come back now, and I'm going to move on to actually, like, we're gonna park that for a moment. You might think, what the heck have we done that for? But hopefully it'll just help things to make sense a bit later on. So what is meant by the senses? What do we mean? What are senses? How many senses have we got? Do people want to shout out? Because I'm just like in an echo chamber at the moment with my voice echoing around the room, and it'd be nice to hear some people. So do you want to shout out? Touch, feeling. Very good. What's that?
Smell.
Brilliant. What else?
Taste.
Fab. Yeah.
Hearing.
Yeah.
Seeing, obviously.
Cool. Yeah.
So there's 5 as far as I know. Do they say there's 5 senses?
Who thinks there's, do people think there's 5? Do you
I
think
think there's more.
Anybody want to go up more than 5? Who said that? Vestibular?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. Vestibular. Do you want to explain what that is?
Balance.
Brilliant.
Position in space.
Fantastic. Yeah, all to do with the inner ear. Yeah. Vestibular. So that's 6.
Could you have a spiritual sense?
Spiritual sense. Now, yeah, that's an interesting one. There is the the sense of interoception, so it's like a visceral internal sense, which I think is linked to spirituality. Yeah. I mean, basically, there's not enough research is being done all the time to show that there's actually loads more senses than we traditionally think about. I mean, the interoception, the internal one, is more to do with feelings inside your body. So it's things like being hungry, the feeling of pain. So I mean, you could say that gut feeling when you have like an instinct, that's all internal. So that would come under interoception. Yeah. So that's what, 7? There's another one. Have you heard of proprioception?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is to do with here we go. Sorry, I'm just going to show you this. Being, teaching in a special school. I teach in a special school for three days of the week, which is a large secondary special for student. It's for students who are autistic and have complex communication difficulties. So obviously I use as many symbols as possible. So I actually, when I prepared these materials, these resources, I just automatically use symbols, even if it's for a mainstream, Forest School Association conference or whatever, because I think it's well known, but I feel quite strongly that it's good practice for everyone to have visual aids. Like we were just chatting before we came on, Matt, Nick and myself, about signing and Makaton and BSL, and how important it is, how crucial it is to try and include as many people as possible. And that's what my passion is. It's if we can reach more people by being aware of how the senses work, and being able to read individuals' sort of preferences, and if they're seeking out certain if they're sensory seeking for our sessions in Forest School, we need to be able to respond. And so anyway, yeah, that's a long-winded way of explaining why I've done these. But yeah, proprioception, you can see there, it's your body awareness of your body and position. It's, yeah, there we go. So got the auditory, visual, olfactory, tactile. Did we say that? Don't know if we did. Gustatory, the taste. And then, yeah, vestibular, balanced head position, and then the visceral interoception, which is to do with, linking up all the internal organs, and that awareness basically of your body, which we take for granted. And then I've left, there's a blank one there because that sort of represents the gap of other ones to be pinned down in the future. So yeah, anyway, so there we go. So that's good to know what we're looking for. So what are sensory circuits? So sensory, I found it quite tricky to sort of summarize all this into like a 45-minute webinar with, I don't want to be all heavy on the theory and research. I just wanted it to be as practical as possible, but there is obviously loads you can read up on about sensory integration, sensory processing differences. I'm not sure how many people are aware of, the sort of social model of disability, and how that is, it's to do with how how the world is disabling for people who are neurodivergent, because most things are set up, you know, they create barriers for disabled people, which makes them disabled rather than the opposite. So providing a ramp, say, for somebody in a wheelchair is brilliant. Obviously it's needed, but so are other adaptations, you know, like we're getting more sort of autism friendly screenings at cinemas, and the acceptance of in mainstream schools of young people who might have difficulties sitting still, you know, with the ADHD, and it's more acceptable to let them have a movement break or have adaptations. People who might find lights too bright in an environment that is unnatural, it's accepted that they can wear some shades or whatever, sunglasses, and not be made to feel like a nutter, you know. Anyway, sorry, I'm going off on a tangent there. So sensory circuits are like, they were designed, created as in the sort of, I think it was in the the 60s, 70s, in response to the findings of an occupational therapist called Jean Ayres, American woman, who came up with sensory integration theory, which is basically about how people interpret all those senses we've just talked about. You know, it's like your brain is taking in all the information from all those senses and having to respond. You know, we're all doing it now. I'm finding it difficult to sit at the table with my upright. I can feel that my even though my feet are in sandals, they're quite hot and sweaty. I'm thirsty, so I'm going to get a drink. I've got to move my arm and lift the glass and not spill it, and not, you know, so all that is a very complex sort of series of messages that I'm processing. And very often people with neurological conditions like cerebral palsy, autism, ADHD, Tourette syndrome, Down syndrome, have difficulties with sensory integration. So they'll have problems sorting all that information, which can come across as strange behavior. You know, maybe somebody will be flapping the hands or moving the hand in front of their eyes because they're visually their visual sense is impaired in some way. Anyway, again, I'm talking too much, so sorry. Right, so a sensory circuit was designed as like I said, an intervention, really. It's also often known as a sensory diet, which incorporates all of those senses, all of those 8 senses, to sort of, the idea, the reason why I've got Winnie the Pooh there is because the idea is that you're going to end up calm and alert, ready to learn, like Winnie the Pooh. You're not going to be Eeyore, all sort of floppy and sleepy, and you're not going to be like Tigger, jumping around and full of energy and a bit all over the place. So bearing in mind, they were designed to use in schools for staff to help young people be ready to learn. So again, just to explain, I've taken that, I think, because at my school where I work, we do sensory circuits, and traditionally they use things like, you know, the tunnels and plastic hoops and benches, gym benches, bean bags, gym balls, I just wanted to adapt it, the program, for an outdoor setting. So anyway, it's got there's three elements. There's an alerting stage, which is all about getting some vestibular, getting some movement going, and stimulating that sense. And then you have an organizing stage where you'll do some sorting. It's like some kind of motor challenge. So it's about getting some bilateral action going across the brain. So, I mean, tying shoelaces is obviously a great activity for that. Sorry, my brain's gone blank. Yes.
Can I just ask a question then? In that
Yeah, go.
second stage in the organising, does
Yeah.
balancing coming in then, or does balancing come in the calming bit?
Balancing comes in the organising.
It does. I thought
Yeah.
so.
What I was going to say was, obviously you adapt. What we did was very sort of quite simple and suitable for doing like sitting at a webinar, you know. When I've done I mean, I'll come up and show you some examples that we can use at Forest School. But in a gym situation, so at school, when the students do sensory circuits with our PE TA, teaching assistant, they might walk along a bench with a beanbag on their head, jump off, then go on a trampoline, and then have to throw a ball into a bucket or something like that. So obviously you adapt the challenge to suit the individual. So yeah, sorting, categorizing, balancing, doing obstacle courses, that's a great one for Forest School. So it's that kind of activity. And then the last one is calming. So it's about applying pressure. And again, it will depend on the individual. Some people like to hang, like to feel their body weight. And again, this is why it's good to know. I mean, know yourself. Everybody has, you know, poor sensory motor days, and everybody has preferences. I mean, this is why I found it difficult to squeeze it all in, because we could look at our own preferences. You know, have you got certain habits you do that you actually haven't thought of in terms of sensory feedback? But, you know I've got certain twitches that I do that I enjoy the feeling of. I pick my nails. You know, you might pick your nails. You might like to, you might need to move, be somebody who's moving around all the time. So we've got lots of, everybody's obviously is unique, and we're in a unique position working at Forest School to be able to recognize those behaviors and use them to really make people feel welcome. And you know, I mean, I was looking at Michael James. I don't know if people have seen his book, you know, the Forest School and Autism book. Have people seen that? There's a section in there which I was just thinking, wow, yeah, that is so true. You know, using people's stimming activities. You know, when you hear of autistic people who stim, so they might do certain things. Like there's a boy in a class I had this morning, and he always likes to twiddle with something. So he'll have bits of paper that is just constantly twizzling around like this in front of his face. You go outside, he'll pick grass. You know, he's having a crisis last year when we were out on a trip, and I just knew straight away. I just picked a long piece of grass and bent it into the curve he likes, and there he was, you know, soothing himself. And then you can think of activities that use that kind of movement. So he might like to do some tying or swinging. You know, it's about recognizing that type of sensory input that he searches. You know, other young people might like to bite. So obviously that's not ideal. So then you think of how you're going to adapt the activity or give them an alternative that is more appropriate. That's a bit of an extreme case, but you know, it's just about knowing who you're working with and offering alternative approaches to make sure you're maximizing the impact and making the session as enjoyable as possible. You know, often you'll get the young, I mean, it's difficult for me to say because all my lessons are with students who've got special needs. So, but you hear of stories of if you've got a mainstream group and maybe one or two of the students might be neurodivergent, and they'll thrive in a forest school setting because they'll be the ones who can climb the tree. They'll be the ones who are super focused. They're able to engage, in lighting that fire or whatever. So it's just we've got that privilege to be able to facilitate all that. Anyway.
Sorry, can I just ask another?
Yeah, sure. I can't hear you. Do you want to press your mic? Yeah. Oh, you've turned it off again.
Hi, now what? Is that okay? Can you hear me now? Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know, because I only work with special needs children like yourself, and I have a small forest school and mindfulness setting. And how much of a session would you do the sensory circuit for before they move on? So would you do alerting, organizing, calming, and then go on, or would you consider it that the sensory circuit is something they keep popping back to as part of the session?
It depends. I would say ideally you would start with the sensory circuit because it kind of sets the scene. But you could use it as a transitionary activity, or I mean, we're going to go on a bit later to consider forest school, a forest school session as a sensory circuit, itself. If you think about, the sort of energizing activities you'll do at the beginning, and then in the middle, you're doing some kind of skills. And then towards the end, it's more, open-ended explore time when they have their, learner-led activities, and perhaps that's when you're having a drink. So that's more calming. So, yeah, but I mean, the sensory circuit only has to last about 5 minutes, the whole thing. You can do maybe 1 minute of alerting activities, which are there, look. So the idea is to have some kind of stimulation for the vestibular system. So you might do skipping or tree tag, running around tagging trees, jumping, anyway, all the things that are on there. And then you could do 1 minute of tree tag and then a minute of star jumps, and then move on to the organizing stage. And then as long as you finish, you need to make sure you finish with the calming activity. I've heard people, when I ran the course, when I did some workshops at the FSA, people who are experienced in running and doing sensory circuits themselves, and they've worked with families who have used them, and I mean, from feedback I've had from parents and professionals, as long as you do the middle one and the end one, or the first one and the end one, that's fine. And again, I think this is what I'm quite keen to do, break down the mystique, because I remember for years working in the special school and thinking, oh, sensory circuits, they're really complicated, and I don't do that. The OT comes in and does it. But I just think, well, why not? We don't have to call it a sensory circuit. It's just having the awareness of what's going on. I think it helps. You don't have to call it a sensory circuit. So anyway, yeah, so here, look, this is like a typical sort of setup I might do at forest school. So I'll say, right, we're going to do sensory circuit, we're going to do some jumping. I might get we might have logs or some branches, depending on the site, or some stones or whatever. We're going to do 1 minute or 2 minutes of jumping. Right, off we go. Now, start doing your jumping. Then when you've done that, we're moving on to an obstacle course. And often, I'll admit, I sort of steer away from doing a sensory circuit in a session, because I think, oh, I haven't set up a really groovy obstacle course. You know, it doesn't have to be complicated with pulley systems that carry conkers along and, you know, drop them into different sized baskets, or stepping stones across a stream, and, you know, you climb up a rope ladder, and it can literally be walking along a wall, or, like I said before, along a line that you see on the floor, on the pavement. Yeah, and I ran a workshop in a special school here in Sheffield last summer, and one of the activities and there were a couple of wheelchair users, was basically throwing pine cones into different containers. You know, so they'd have the pine cones on their lap, they're throwing them into the containers on the floor, and that's it. You know, what's not to love about that? So yeah, again, keep it simple. Don't get bogged down thinking it's got to be something really complicated. And then, yeah, tree hug. That's a nice one. Obviously, forest bathing is a good one for the calming, or lying in a hammock, or having, you know, back to back, sitting back to back with someone. Again, it depends on what an individual finds calming. I wouldn't find doing the plank very calming, whereas some people would. You know, some people need to run around, need to get that feedback to feel calm and to let off steam. So sensory circuits on forest school. So I touched on this when I mentioned, I'm just conscious of time, I don't want to yak on too much. Yeah, how the whole a classic forest school session is one ginormous sensory circuit, which is why it's such an amazing provision for everyone, you know, and we should be having it in all schools. I always get laughed at training and, you know, whole school training sessions when we're asked for ideas, and I just say we should just do forest school all the time. We should learn everything through forest school. But yeah, we're always looking to improve, aren't we, and diversify and ensure that we are as inclusive as possible. So if you think about a hammock, putting a hammock up, yeah, you're running around or walking around looking. The scavenger hunt is a great, and this is where things overlap, and again, don't get bogged down. Scavenger hunt could be, or looking for a site, you know, a suitable place to put your hammock, could be the alerting one, depending on who we're talking about. Or it could be the organising one, where people are looking and you're doing a bit of a scavenger hunt around. Then the organising stage would be tying it, you know, looking, thinking where you're going to put it, getting it secured. And then the calming one is lying in the hammock. So that is that's the sensory circuit. You don't have to call it that, again, like I said, but hopefully it just sort of helps us to understand how that activity scientifically is helping somebody. Anyway, so Kelly Kettle, I just thought of this a few weeks ago, how all these activities are you know, like mini sensory circuits. So you're collecting the wood, or chopping the wood, sawing the wood, carrying the wood, and then the organising bit is setting it up, you know, getting your sticks into sizes. I mean, I've got a young person who is non-verbal, very energetic, super vestibular, in his learning. You know, he bounces all the time. We've got mini trampolines all over the place for him, and he's a runner, so he can sprint. I'm taking him out on a trip tomorrow, and he will be off if anyway. Get him on an activity like this, and he's so focused. And I think a lot of it will be to do with his OCD of making sure things are in a certain way, but the setting up and sorting of the firewood is the organizing bit, and then lighting the fire, feeding the fire, and all that jazz is the calming section. Now we're going to do some group work, split into little groups. So what I want you to do, Matt or Nick are going to put you into groups of about 4 or 5, and you're going to, in your group, you're going to choose one of these activities from Forest School, or 2 or 3, or another one if you've got a burning desire, and just chat together about how that activity is a sensory circuit, the different stages of doing, you know, maybe you making medallions with the tools or leaf bashing, whatever, how those activities fit into a sensory circuit. Okay, we have about 3-4 minutes. Right. Hello, can you hear me again? What's going on?
Yes, we can hear you.
Is that better?
I can hear you. I can
We're
hear
back
you,
on.
but no, I can't see
Yeah.
you. There we go.
All right. Sorry, I got cut off there mid sentence. Just so I finish that sentence off so that it makes sense to my group. I was asked how you would accommodate a large group, you know, say if you had up to 30 people, which imagine having that at Forest School, but anyway. And what I was going to say is have a couple of, at least 2 options for each stage, and then you know, talk through, explain, depending again on the ability of the participants. But you know, you could have 2 or 3 alerting activities, so you could split them into 3 groups of 10, and then two organizing ones, and then they swap. You know, they can lead them, they can choose whichever to do. Just keep it flexible, but as I said, do it rather than get worried and bogged down with the detail. And then somebody was saying if anyway, sorry, I'm going on again. Has anybody got any feedback from that? Because I'm conscious of the time and there's a couple of other things I wanted to do.
Yeah, Emily, we had a really interesting chat about den building.
Okay.
And we started with looking at den building, and then we realized that kind of the activities within den building, that there was the sensory circuit within there, but then we were talking about what happens then, and it was like kind of that then kicks off a second sensory circuit and a third sensory circuit and a fourth sensory circuit, and it's almost like the Forest School session is one great big sensory circuit. And then within that sensory circuit there's loads of little other sensory circuits that are all going on. And kind of I don't have a great experience of working with people with additional needs, but even within kind of whatever a standard Forest School session is, that you can still see these sensory circuits happening, but they also seem to catalyze quite deep play. After that kind of calming phase, it catalyzes that really deep play, and you access into things that the children want to bring and explore. Which is,
it's really fascinating, isn't it? Once you
Yeah.
start looking at it in terms of that and how everything's linked in, I mean, it makes me want to do some kind of research into it, you know, and then I get distracted and forget. But no, that's why it is fascinating. I think when you look at it, and that's obviously why maybe it's one of the hidden reasons why Forest School is such a wonderful approach. You know, I had to write a pedagogy statement a few years ago now for outdoor learning and it was general sort of, outdoor learning, and it was before I'd done my forest school training, and how it suits pedagogy statement for outdoors, and it was all basically good practice for working with autistic youngsters. It's visual, it's holistic, it's learner-led, it's physical, multisensory, lots of opportunities for life skills, and so I think the fact that it is so holistic, maybe we need to make more of that as a forest school sort of organization, about the richness of what it offers. Anyway, that's for another time. So let's just move on. Sorry, did anybody else have any feedback from that? Questions we can ask maybe at the end. No. So yeah, I've included this slide because this was part of my testing for when I did the commission last summer before last now, and this was basically in a park just down the road from me. I live quite centrally in Sheffield, a very urban park, mixed, quite edgy area within the ring road, just nice little playground, but some dog muck and all that kind of thing, undesirable waste products, and people heckling as you walking past. But just to show that you don't need a wonderful ancient woodland to do this. So anyway, that's why I've just put that in there. I think that might be the penultimate slide, because I was thinking, oh no, here we go. Oh yeah, just a bit of a quote by Olga Bogdashina, who is an expert in autism and all sorts of sensory processing things. I actually know Olga, well, I don't know her very well, but she was on the course I did years ago. And I think that's just a lovely quote, just a reminder to, that it is a stress, it is a strain. If you're feeling, the analogy that that an author, I think it's the woman who wrote the book on sensory circuits, which I've got here if anybody's interested. Yeah, I think I've seen it in there. It's that she uses the analogy of us being like a police officer directing traffic, and if you get overloaded, you're in that constant traffic jam, stressy mode. So, and that is often the case for people who have difficulty or differences in integrating and coping with all those messages and sense experiences that are bombarding them. So anyway, there we go, and that's one of my students having a good old stir. Oh yeah, so that's me at the end with my details. But if you've got time, it's 9 o'clock, don't know if anybody, one of the things I was thinking of doing before we have questions was getting you to think of, it's going to be tricky actually, I think, tabletop style, maybe let's leave it. But I was going to say, do you want to go off and create your own sensory circuit in your groups again? But so I don't know if you want to have a vote on that or just make a decision.
People to put some ideas in the chat.
Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, if people fancy doing that. This was the most fun part when I did the workshops at the conference, but obviously we were in the woods then. But people made swings and with rope and pulleys, and we had all sorts of shelters for people to relax in. And as you see on that earlier slide, zoom up there, we've got Andy from who was on the panel, the discussion about neurodivergence. Yeah, I've got Andy from Spectrum Gaming, who straight away went and lay on that hornbeam tree, and he just needed to hang, you know. So it's just, obviously it's much easier, as we know, to do these things when you're outside in nature. So yeah, there we go. Thank you so much for listening and being game for doing that at this time on a Wednesday night.
Well,
I hope
thank you,
you've
Emily.
enjoyed it. Any
That was good.
questions for me?
I've just got a question, please.
Yeah.
Is that me? I'm not very good with the computer.
Alex.
I've looked. You've put on there about a tunnel being one of the things
Yeah.
to go through the calming, and I have heard about, and I can't make it work in my setting, which is outdoor, but I did wonder, I have heard about the fact of like something that they can wrap in something, so the enveloping schema, that they're hugged, or not necessarily by a person, but wrapped up in a tarpaulin or something like that. Have you heard? You haven't mentioned that, so I'm wondering if you don't think it's necessary, because I've kind of thought, oh gosh, that tunnel's not very tight, it's just a dog agility tunnel, and I've wondered if I've been doing them a disservice not squeezing them, if you see what I mean.
Yeah, well, again, I mean, if you're using a tunnel, that's great, and if people enjoy it, but yeah, it obviously having that pressure, you know, that's the proprioception, the feeling pressed. You know, you can have weighted blankets or a tarpaulin, like you say, with things on top of it, weighing it down. It doesn't have to be weighted. Some young people might not like that. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Temple Grandin.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, she loves that. Not from people, but to have, I mean, she's, you know, designed a hugging machine, didn't she? That they actually use with cattle, because she observed cattle being much calmer when they were in the hugging, the pen, the holding pen. So I would say just experiment, you know, get bags. I mean, I've made some weighted blankets using conkers, but you could just, that's where the log roll one that I mentioned earlier on, don't know if people want to me to go back to that there, might be useful. You know, the log roll, that's often used traditionally in sensory circuits. That's where a padded roll, you know, will be rolled on across somebody's back, but obviously you'd have to risk assess everything and not use like a really knobbly half-ton log that's, you know. So again, just be creative. You know, you could get bags of soil. That could be part of the sensory circuit, digging the soil into bags or into trugs that are then placed on top of somebody. I mean, it's just endless. You know, it's quite overwhelming, to be honest. Well, when I think about this, you know, I find I get a bit overwhelmed, and yeah. So does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Good. Anything else?
Can I just add to what you were just talking about? Something that I've done in my setting. So with the hammocks, rather than going from tree to tree, left to right, I've got a couple of oak trees with some branches, and I tie both ends of the hammock to the branch and have the hammock hanging down in like a swinging seat. And we actually call them hugs. And when they sit in them, the body weight pulls the hammock right around the person's body. I often sit in them myself, and it gives you the feeling of being hugged in the woods. And that's one of the ways I hadn't realized I'd been doing a sensory thing. But that's kind of links to what Alex just was talking about. I thought I'd share it.
Thank you.
Fantastic. No, that's brilliant. Yeah, perfect.
How do you make your like, you know, when you do the tunnel crawl, how do you do that in the in the forest school?
Outside.
setting, yeah. So because, like, you know, because it can be the all sticks and twigs underneath, and so do you put a tarp down, and then yeah, how do you make the tunnel?
Yeah, it depends on the floor, you know, but yeah, you could put a tarp on, depending on your students. Some might, you know, some would not. There's no way they would go down that, you know, they don't want to get dirty or whatever. Or it's wet and you haven't got facilities. So yeah, you put a tarp down. You can obviously lean sticks to make a little lean-to, or use tarps to make the tunnel. All sorts. Yeah. Or mats, you know, kneel pads. You'll get some students who won't do it, but again, don't stress. Don't think we've all got to do the sensory circuit, you know, because that in itself.
No,
is
I mean,
very-
I'm not sort of stressed about that. It's just like, you know, like thinking of like how to make a decent tunnel.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just
But
remember,
that's
yeah,
that's what I was saying about, you know, sometimes I'll not do stuff because I think, oh, it's not going to be the best tunnel, like the most amazing obstacle course. Yeah, I mean, you could get the kids to make their own.
yeah.
as
I mean,
well.
I went to an agricultural show years ago, and they had this thing where, you know, it's like an agricultural show. This was in Yorkshire Dales somewhere, and they had like mountain search and rescue, where they, you know, they have different little kind of sort, and they had this, it was absolutely fantastic, where they, you know, to kind of simulate like potholing and stuff, they had a tarp, and then I don't know how, like really, but like completely blacked out, like another tarp over the top, and kids were going down, and they'd obviously got some kind of like tunneling thing in between, it was just in between the two tarps, but you had to kind of like go in at one end and find your way sort of to the other end, and you and it was, you know, it was absolutely pitch black, but that was really sort of close, because my kids did it and they felt like it was, you know, it was, and they were so excited about it, they just wanted to do it again and again. But yeah, I was thinking something like that would just be fantastic. And we, you know, like you know, in my setting, you know, everything is, you do it if you want to, this is what's going on here, if you want to do it, you don't have to, you know. So I'm just thinking, you know, having something set up like that, do it if you, or setting it up with them. But yeah, it's just trying to get ideas about how to do it without, you know, puncturing the tarps, all the sticks poking up through, and, you know, or kids, their knees are getting hurt by. But yeah, no, that gives me some ideas.
I think that motion is more to do with the motion than the experience of it being dark. So I mean, you could always, you know, if you think somebody wanted to have it dark, you could always put a blindfold on, you know. There's ways around it, aren't there? But just remember, it doesn't have to be a tunnel. It's about the movement of crawling.
Okay, yeah, sure. So like going under a camo net, or like a series of ropes sort of woven between trees, so they're going under those ropes. Yeah.
And of course now, you know, we've got lush greenery everywhere. There's more.
Well, not on our site. It's like nothing blooming grows, it's just dirt. But yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for the question. Any more? I mean, if people want to get in touch with me, obviously I'm very happy, more than happy, you know, to respond and chat and share ideas, because I'm always after some inspiration. Anybody else?
No, thanks. That's been really useful. Thank you, especially sort of clarifying the stages, because I try and do it, and I kind of think that when you look at the sort of the physio, I looked at a physio model to get my ideas right, actually, because I'd seen it work really, really well in a school, but obviously with sort of orange and blue plastic balance things. So it's
that's
quite
the thing, isn't it? That's what gets me, you know. It's as if you have to have really expensive plastic, brightly colored plastic stuff.
balance boards, yeah. So it's really useful just really to see how all the activities actually they are or can be used to be.
I mean, in you know, and again, as we know, you know, it's the beauty of what we're doing. It's all seasonal, so you know, you could do like a texture walk, using all whatever's available at the time of year, or because what made me think that was thinking how amazing it would be to make, you know, one of those kind of what they called dive bags, airbags, when kids do somersaults and stuff. I'm thinking of my children. And fill one with, imagine how many leaves you'd need, but fill, you know, have a massive pile of leaves. It doesn't have to be in a bag, but to know that when, as part of the circuit, if the idea is to dive into a pile of leaves, that's the organizing bit. It's just, I think it's just quite helpful, isn't it? So hopefully it has given you a bit more, another string to your bow, as they say. And yeah, onward and upward, and please keep in touch and let me know how you get on.
Thank you. Oh,
You're muted again, Alex.
oh gosh, sorry. Am I muted now?
No, we can hear you
That's
now.
fine.
Oh, I'm a bit rubbish at this, as you can tell. I'm much better with leaves and trees, I promise.
Me too.
Did someone say we were going to get the slides, or your some of your little slides, or not? Is that not true?
Can do, yeah. Or I can send them you on WhatsApp if you
Would you? That'd be lovely. How will I
email
give
me
you?
or...
Okay, I'll email you now. Okay, brilliant. Thank you so much. Not to steal all
If
your
Emily's
ideas.
if Emily's happy, then we can put this out on YouTube as well.
Sure, that's fine by me.
Thank you, Emily.
I was
And that means
expecting-
that people can look back and skip
Mhm.
through things and rewatch things as many times as they want.
Mm.
So we
Could
often
I-
get quite a few reviews of our videos, often more than actually people that turn up. So that's quite good.
Reviews, not reviews. Reviews.
Yes, yeah. Reviews.
Yeah. Okay. I would like some reviews, but not. Yeah.
Yeah.
And reviews. Anyway, sorry.
Could I ask a question, Emily?
No.
Oh, maybe you're over it. In
Sorry.
terms, like, when you're going through those stages with the children, do you ask them how they're feeling at those points and what's happening within their body, or is it more of a you let them do it and you observe it?
I don't tend to ask them during, midway through the process. And again, it depends, I mean, often there'll be something that happens in my session, which means we've got to run off. So, but I always talk about it beforehand, saying, we're going to do sensory circuit, and remember what the aim is. We're wanting to feel calm and alert and ready, and feel good about ourselves. So I don't tend, but again, I don't know. I'm not, I'm not a scientist. It would be good to do some research on that, but I don't tend to, it just feels a bit bitty if you start saying, and how do you feel now? You've been running around tagging trees. Oh, and now we're going to go into, because you don't want to overload with loads of language. So we might talk about it at the end.
Yeah.
It might just be a quick, right, so let's go. We're going to go and play a game now or whatever, So it depends on, you read.
Yeah, because in terms of if they start to notice when I do that, I feel like this, that then it's a tool in their box that they can
absolutely,
use without someone saying, let's do a circuit, or it looks like you might need to start a circuit. So
yeah. Well, that's the other bonus of it. I think, it's very empowering. I mean, many of the students I work with, they're not at that level. You can't say to them, oh, you obviously need to do a lot more sort of running around and swinging and, feeling your body in different positions. But if they're receptive to that, yeah, I'd say definitely, absolutely, it's crucial. I mean, it's life-changing, isn't it, to be able to say, oh, you need that. You could be doing X, Y, and Z to help soothe you. I mean, there's a student I was thinking of just then, it popped in my head, who used to be really difficult to engage. He was, very rarely in classes. He'd have his own timetable. And he was once cooking outside with me. We were doing pancakes, I think. And you know, you always get one or two who are like really just don't leave the fire, and they like the smell of the fire, and they'll be tending it and helping, you know. And he was so engaged, and the teaching assistant said, "Oh, so and so, what? I don't understand it. You don't even go in the food tech room. You never do cooking when it's food tech." And he just turned to her and he said, "Well, it stinks in there, you know." And he now wants to become a chef.
Wow.
So I mean, I'm going off a bit on a tangent, but
Yeah.
not only we're offering them opportunities to try, you know, activities in a different setting, different environment, but if you're empowering them to know that they enjoy that, they find it relaxing to cook on a fire, they can't stand the, you know, the stench of a food tech room. I mean, who can, you know? The hot, the really smelly, there's really noisy, there's all those hard surfaces and stuff. So yeah, I think it is essential that you arm them with that self-awareness. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Long answer, sorry.
No, it's fantastic. That's brilliant. Thank you.
If there are any other questions, then feel free to ask them or put them in the chat. Or otherwise, thank you very much for coming, and thank you, Emily, for sharing that. Loads of people have messaged to say how useful and how fantastic it was. So thank you very much.
Where's that?
For
Can I see that?
sharing your time.
In the notes?
Yeah, it's all in the chat.
Oh, where's the chat?
Yeah,
Sorry.
and down at the bottom.
Oh, 20 notes. Oh dear. Oh, somebody's in the woodland. Sorry, I might read through those later. Can I read through those later? Stop.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, hi Mom. I think you're there somewhere. Well, thank you for having me. It's been nice. It's been fun.
Absolutely, it's been lovely, and I hope we'll be able to organise some time where you can come and do a sensory circuits in person, and people can explore the whole full sensory experience rather than doing it through Zoom, which is a challenge. So well done. Thank you very much for accommodating us in that.
Well, if anybody has got lots of money and wants to pay me to come, I can do that.
That's brilliant.
Seriously, on my website, it'll show you. Oh,
Great.
plug. No, so, you know, yeah, I'm in the real world. I know we're not all in that field, but you never know who's
Yeah.
on YouTube reviewing it.
That's it. Brilliant. Thank you very much, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you on the next one. And now is the perfect time when you leave Zoom to go off and book your conference ticket if you haven't already done it. And if you have already done it, then on the Facebook, Twitter, any other social media that the conference information has gone out on, if you like it, if you share it, if you retweet it, if you comment on it, all of that helps us to boost the algorithm and to try and hoodwink Twitter and Facebook, and you can do it as a little stick it to the man type thing of trying to make the Forest School Association conference the most popular thing on Facebook. So if you could do that, that would be really helpful. And hopefully we'll see lots of you then. And hopefully we'll see lots of you for our Breeze research project next month. Thank you very much. Happy solstice, everyone.